Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one, Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. The three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James. Second. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland! This is for you!
Good morning, Cavs fans, and welcome to an edition of Coffee and Cavs with Block the Shot to Stop. I'm Skylar Webker. He's Tim Daniel. And today we want to go over, kind of continue our series of player profiles and how we see them fitting into this team, going into the next season. This episode, we're going to cover the two new additions, Larry Nance Jr. and Lonzo Ball. Tim, I know you have a lot of thoughts about a lot of things, but specifically with watching Lonzo Ball as he was a Bull. You're a well-documented former Bulls fan. So how do you – let's start there. Let's start with Larry Nance – or not Larry Nance. Let's start with Lonzo Ball. The L's are tripping me up.
It's very early in the morning.
More coffee. So
Yes.
how do you see Lonzo Ball fitting into this offense? What are we getting from Lonzo that maybe we weren't getting with Ty Jerome or some of the other options that are out there on the market?
I think the first thing you're getting is a much better perimeter defender. And I think the other thing you're getting is a guy who has the ability to create space. I think is the biggest difference in Jerome and Lonzo, where, don't get me wrong, Jerome, the way he scored last year was unbelievable for the Cavs, obviously deserved to be the sixth-man candidate of the year, was in the candidacy. We all feel like he didn't get it strictly because of the lack of minutes he played. His shots were a lot of just like bumping into people and forcing contact, which there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. I feel like the Cavs here are kind of just more going the situation of they want to be able to open the floor a little more. And I think when you look at that Pacers series, that's something they ran into where they didn't have that opportunity to do as much. And I think the other thing too is Lonzo's a gunner. Lonzo's going to push the ball. Where the other thing that really was frustrating that Indiana series for a lot of people was the Cavs really struggled to get the ball across half court at times. That's not a fault of Jerome because he's at times playing with, without Donovan, who's, out there on one leg. Darius misses a good chunk of the series. But I think right here, what they're looking at is a guy who's going to push the ball up the floor a little easier. We never have to have that struggle with Lonzo of where it's going to be. And then also, just a better perimeter defender. And I think the Cavs, that's another thing that jumps out the most about where they fell short was they weren't able to do that. And look, I understand the injuries. I understand the concerns, 100% valid. But I understand this is a swing that the Cavs are taking. This is an if swing, as we call it. And if Lonzo Ball's on the floor, it's going to be great for the fact that one, you can play three guards because of his size. He can play the three on defense. You can then play DeAndre Hunter at the 4 and get more momentum than Mobley at the 5. And then also you get a guy who, when he takes risk defensively, it very rarely goes bad. He's a guy who really has a good sense of when to go for a steal. Really has a good sense of clogging up passing lanes on defense. So I understand the issues. I understand the worries about bringing Lonzo Ball into Cleveland. That our colleague Kevin has, and you hear it for sure. You hear it,
Yeah.
But if you're looking at me being on the brighter side of life, as I try to be, if they can use him the way that Oklahoma City just used Alex Caruso, where it's like you're not going to play every game, dude. Like we want you to be fully healthy come April, and you're going to play spurts. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think you bring up a lot of great points. The one that the couple that I like are a much better defender, especially on the perimeter. We saw, that's what we harped on all year last year, is that was their weakness or Achilles heel was perimeter defense.
Mm-hmm.
That really got exposed with Indiana. So I love that you get that. The other thing that I love is with the way that Kenny Atkinson plays this offense, it's very pass-centric, pass-friendly. Lonzo Ball is a great facilitator. He's probably one of the best in the league at pass and facilitation. That's kind of why he had this early hype about him. It wasn't just scoring. He was a great ball handler and facilitator. So now you get a guy like that coming in, and you're right about the injuries and everything like that. But in this situation, he's going to play career low minutes than he ever has because he's not going to be a starter. He's going to start for Darius Garland being injured in the start of the year, but he will play likely career low minutes. I saw on X that prior his career low was about 33 minutes. He's taking a Ty Jerome spot who struggled to get 20 minutes a night. So
yeah,
I think you'll be okay as far as the injury mitigation because of how Kenny Atkinson does the rotations. He keeps everybody on low minutes. He goes with a deeper bench, and we still have a deeper bench. I mean,
yeah.
If you think that the only loss we've gotten was Ty Jerome. Isaac Okoro struggled to fill some of that bench time as we saw as the year went on. So we still have
sounds like too. There's a lot of trust in Tyrese Proctor. It sounds like that's not just a second round pick too. So
it does sound like that. It sounds a lot like that, which
I'm okay with that.
I am too. I think it was what we hoped Amani Bates could have become.
There's a difference, though, Skylar.
There is very much a
difference. Tyrese Proctor is good.
Don't get me wrong.
We had so much fun with Amani Bates. So it's like just chucking it, and we laughed about it. It was a running gag all year. I think Kevin, the last game of the regular season, took a bet on his shot attempts and hit in the first overtime. So
don't get me wrong. Amani Bates was very raw. And so with Proctor, you're getting somebody that's not as raw, very put together and ready to go. Mm-hmm. And I think they're banking high on that. And you're right as far as this being a swing. This is being a big if swing, which I don't know. I'd rather a front office and a team make a swing than kind of relying on somebody being able to repeat a career year.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think too with him, I think this is going to be really beneficial for Evan Mobley because Lonzo is not a get in the paint kind of player where this is going to force Evan Mobley to be a little bit more aggressive. And I don't know if you saw Donovan Mitchell's interview with Taylor Rooks at all, which I thought was really good, by the way. Taylor Rooks is very good at her job. But the big conversation you're hearing from the Cavs is like, for us to take that next level, it's going to be Evan Mobley. We've all said that. Every Cavs podcaster has said that. Now with the fact that, Ty was a guy who went in the paint a lot and clogged the paint up, and Lonzo's not that kind of player. So for Evan, the paint's yours, man. This is yours to dominate, and Lonzo's going to get him the ball where he needs to be. I do kind of want to not necessarily rebuttal you on what you said about Lonzo's going to start a lot while Darius is gone. I don't think that's incorrect. But realistically, I do think you're going to see a lot more Donovan and Sam 1-2 lineups and a little bit less and so, no, I definitely think Lonzo's going to get his fair share of starts in that time frame. Don't get me wrong. But I really feel like Kenny's really going to run a little bit more of Donovan as the main ball handler and Sam kind of coming off the ball and screens and stuff like that. Because then I think we all agree DeAndre Hunter's going to start. And the reason I say that, Skylar, is if Lonzo starts, which we all suspect there's going to be a bit of that he does for sure. Your best playmaker off the bench at that point, if it's not going to be Tyrese Proctor, if you're just going to lean him in, is Max Strus, which I like Max Strus. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that the Cleveland Cavaliers, the biggest reason they're bringing in Lonzo Ball, big picture is they're hoping he's going to be that really good playmaker in the second unit.
Yeah, absolutely. And sure, maybe he doesn't start for Darius's injury, but I do think he has an uptick in minutes compared to when Darius gets
back. Sure. Yeah. And like we say all the time, I mean, crunch time is more important to me than your starting five. So
absolutely.
And I can definitely see, in those situations where Jared Allen couldn't play this year because of athleticism. And you saw that in the Portland game we went to and the Boston game when they had the big comeback. You can now have a situation where you can play Evan at the 5 and have those 3 guards with DeAndre Hunter, and that solves the athleticism issue. If Hunter's hitting at that point too, I mean, that's a really tough team to beat in the last 5 minutes of the basketball game.
I agree. I think You have kind of the two really good playmakers on offense. You have two guys and Garland and Mitchell who can go get a bucket. You have a stretch in really Mobley and
Yeah.
Hunter, because we saw Mobley really uptick his 3-point attempts. And then on the defensive end, you don't have we know Darius Garland isn't a fantastic defender, but you're able to hide that a little more with bringing
Actually,
in.
our good friends, Justin Rowan, I don't know if you saw this,
I did see this.
did a little bit of a deep dive. He's hunted because of size. His defensive numbers actually are pretty decent.
Yeah. I guess that's what I mean. You're not going to get hunted as much, or you can hide that a little bit more when you have somebody that's as good of a perimeter defender as Lonzo.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think that's going to be like a big difference for them. And I know we're going to get to Larry in a second too. I think Larry plays in that as well. I think their ability to switch their defense now is going to be so dynamic, where last year, I mean, they were a top 10 defense, big picture. Wasn't so good at the end of the year, obviously. But through a stretch of 82, they were I think 9th in defensive rating, if I remember correctly. That's really good. I mean, they were first in offense, 9th in defense. That's a team that should be competing for an NBA title, and they fell short. So now you can kind of expand your defensive game plan a little more. It sounds like Johnny Bryant's back, so they didn't lose him to a coaching gig. So that's going to be good news for that concurrency, at least for another year. I can't imagine he's not going to be a head coach next year. I don't have a guess of where. Obviously, there's got to be a lot of basketball to play. But with that being said, I feel like having that concurrency and bringing in guys like Lonzo, bringing in guys like Larry, I think it's going to be really good for this team, man. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the more of the coaching staff that you can keep together, that you can keep that continuity. But yeah, let's get into Larry. That is kind of their big free agent as of this moment. I mean, there's still a lot of off season left, so we'll see what they do. But bringing back Larry Nance Jr., who Cleveland native, going to wear his dad's number again.
Love it.
I love everything about it. I love not only the story behind it and just bringing in a hometown kid, but I just love the player. I loved him when he was here with the Cavs the first time. I love, me and you have been banging the drum all season, last season, so they need a quality big and to back up Jared Allen and Evan Mobley that's athletic, run the floor, can clean up glass, and hey, you got exactly that with Larry Nance Jr.
Yeah, and the 3-point shooting obviously is going to help the spacing for this team a lot offensively as well. Like you said, like if you have stretches where him and Evan on the floor together, you can kind of play 5 out if you have Donovan or Darius as your lead ball handler. And I think that's going to be really fascinating to see how Kenny uses him offensively, because defensively, we know what he's going to do. Defensively, he's going to be physical. He's going to get beat at times, taking a chance, but I can live with getting beat, taking a chance, and taking a risk on the defensive play. That's fine with me. The thing that I really like is for a guy who played last year 20 minutes a game and only played about 25 games, and a lot of that wasn't just the injury part. There was a lot of Atlanta trying to figure out, well, who are we going to move forward with? So I don't blame him a whole lot in that situation. Stocks plus blocks per game. He averages right under 2 for a guy who played 20 minutes. So I think that's going to be something that's really nice for this team. We've talked about it a million times. I mean, a career 35% 3-point shooter. Last 2 years, his last year in New Orleans and this year in Atlanta, was above 40%. So that opens the floor a little more. To put in context, in Cleveland, he was shooting about 36%. And before he moved on to Portland, for that half a year. But for him, like you said, the athleticism of just kind of having that guy to kind of go up there and play tight end almost. Your high-low offense that we saw that they ran so well with Mobley and Allen gets a little more athletic in that sense too. And you can do Mobley now in the dunker spot a little more, and you can open that up. So that part I like. Defensively, I really like the ability to crash the glass. I like the ability to run the floor like you and I have talked about. And I think it just opens that up a little more. And like I said about Lonzo earlier, just the switchability on defense gets better. And I think that in this day and age in the NBA, I think that's a huge thing. Now, again, like we talked about with Lonzo, there are risks, and I think this one is more of a what's the word I'm looking for? This one's more of like a not as risky as Lonzo per se. I feel like it's pretty more like but with that being said, I still think that they are going to be leaning on him a little more as well. You know, you and I we talked about like there was that stretch last year. I think Evan missed 8 games last year. So
Yeah.
you're gonna probably see Larry a little more in there as well. But I like the move. I think it's a move that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, like you said, the storylines alone make it great. I do think it's non-coincidental that 2 of the guys they brought in are former teammates of a guy who's really hinting he wants to come to Cleveland, which we'll get into in another episode. But I'm excited, man. I'm really excited. Also, don't discount the fact that even if it was the situation it was, this guy played in the finals. So
Yeah.
a guy who knows what it's like to get to that level.
Yeah, and I think that's another piece of why specifically these guys that they've brought in is they're not going to get bullied. I would
Correct.
say like they're
Correct.
not they're nice guys. Don't get me wrong, but they have that playoff experience, that playoff attitude when it comes to that. I think it's a big thing. You know, we heard about it a lot when the Cavs got eliminated, is that there's just a bunch of nice guys, you know, and you need a dog. And I think that you're bringing in some guys that, like you said, know what it takes to get in through a playoffs, know what it takes to make it to finals. In Larry Nance's case, I think the mantra that you're bringing in here are different attitude, not just push over nice guys. I think if you get in a scruff like DeAndre Hunter did with Ben Mathurin, I don't think where we saw Jared Allen just do nothing. I think you see Larry Nance do something.
Oh, for sure. Yes, for sure.
And with the addition of Nance, I think you also relieve some of the pressure of Jared Allen you don't have to play through everything. Now I know he wanted the Iron Man this year. He wanted to play all 82 games, and he got that. But we saw like he had his hand bandaged up for a good portion of it because he rocked it on the rim or something. I think you have a little bit more depth where like, hey, Jared Allen, you don't have to play 82 games. Where it did feel like he had to play 82 because we didn't really have help outside of Tristan Thompson. We didn't have quality help behind him.
Yeah, and I think too with this, you know, you look at some of the teams that beat them during the regular season, those teams that really had the ability to go small when need be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this kind of helps with that situation as well. It just kind of having that, you know, if you got to take Jared off the floor for about 5-10 minutes, it's a nice plug-in. On the offensive side of things, I think it was Mikey G, who we're working on getting on the show from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, who mentioned that he got some numbers from Cleaning the Glass that mentioned that Larry Nance was a more efficient wide open 3-point shooter than Nikola Jokic last year.
Bananas.
Yeah. So was the top, when he had an open shot, was the top 3-point shooter for a big last year, which is very baseball stat. Very like in the 7th inning in a dome in a night game in a 3-2 count. I get it.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing.
Yeah. And especially like we saw Kenny's offense really give people open shots. We saw the facilitation and the ball movement. So I think having Lonzo, who can help run an offense like that, and guys that you feel good about taking that shot, I think it helps all the way around. And it doesn't hurt that Larry Nance and Lonzo played together in LA.
I was going to see if you're going to bring this up. Yeah.
When they came up, and Nance has played with Darius Garland with their time in Cleveland. So I think there's a lot of familiarity around it all.
Yeah, both guys have obviously played with really talented, really intelligent basketball players. Obviously, both have experience with LeBron. Both, you know, Larry Nance played with, like, you know, you look at Larry Nance. They've also, wow, come to think of it, yeah, they've both played with Zion, who you can say what you want about staying on the floor, not on the floor. It's pretty easy to get Zion Williamson the ball. And these are two guys who had the ability to do so for a bit there. This is a guy who played with Dame Lillard. This is a guy who played with CJ McCollum. So, and then on the Lonzo end, this is a guy who's played with DeMar DeRozan. This is a guy who gave Zach LaVine the best stretch of his career and got him to the point where the Sacramento Kings wanted this to be a really dumb trade to get him. So I like these two moves. I think they're good. They're really good moves. I'm really curious. You and I were texting about this yesterday. They have one roster spot open now.
Mm-hmm.
Do they go the vet guy there? You mentioned you would like to see Kevin Love. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Kevin Love's going to play on the West Coast next year for maybe his last year or so, probably with like the Warriors or somebody. But is this a situation where they go get another big and they still have, a little bit of leeway financially to do so? I harped on Chris Boucher quite a bit on the last episode Kevin and I did. I think he would be the absolutely perfect final addition to this roster. I think he would just be the absolute perfect final piece.
Yeah, I think the reason I said Kevin Love was to play that Tristan Thompson.
There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Yeah.
Yeah, the Hassan Whiteside role where you're probably not going to play a lot, but you are guidance and mentorship. Like you have a ring, you know how to get there. Yeah,
you're going to the Hall of Fame. Yeah,
you are a Hall of Famer, exactly. So I think there's a lot of room in that maybe we don't have on this roster currently, but I think you're right. I think he probably goes to the West Coast and finishes out in his home area.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if the Lakers try to bring him in to kind of just like try to, keep LeBron happy a little bit for another year because I know, like I said, we're going to do an episode on this and I don't want to dig too deep into it, but seeing him get bought out or seeing him waive his no trade clause for a team he doesn't want to go to doesn't seem very likely. So I wonder if it's like, hey, we'll bring your old buddy Kevin in so we can like make this year not be as dramatic as possible.
Maybe.
Or the Clippers may bring him in, even though he was part of the trade there. I thought his tweet was really funny when he's like, I never thought I'd be a math problem. But I think the Warriors makes a ton of sense for Kevin Love. I just feel like it's a thing, because apparently they're the lead candidates for Al Horford too. So, and Al Horford, Kevin Love, Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, Draymond Green team. Sounds like it'd be a League Pass team to watch, at least if you're up late on the West Coast drinking some coffee.
Yeah, definitely. Before we get out of here, I do want to ask, with these two moves, because these are kind of the moves that the Cavs have made so far, does it raise their ceiling or does it raise their floor?
That's a great question. That's a really good question. That's probably the best question you've ever asked on a podcast, by the way. I think it raises their floor.
I would agree.
Yeah, I still feel like, and I get Atlanta's made some really good moves. I don't think Atlanta's better than the Cavs. And I understand the battle right now for the favorite on FanDuel is between the Knicks and the Cavs. That's just, they're just taking advantage of Knicks fans betting money. And I think Orlando certainly made great moves. I still don't think they're better than the Cavs. I think those guys just make it more of like a sure consistency thing where you feel comfortable on the floor. You're not taking a big risk taking these guys in. I'd polar opposite, honestly. If this Lonzo thing doesn't pan out, okay, he's just not on the team next year. Same with Larry Nance. So, or it's, okay, this isn't working out. Teams are going to want expiring contracts at the trade deadline. So, yeah, man, I think it just raises their floor a little more. And I'm really, really curious to see how it all goes. But I think they're going to be a good basketball team still. I don't want to say they're going to win 60 games again, but do I think they'll have home court advantage in the playoffs again? Yes, absolutely. It's just, what do they do with it at that point?
I agree. I still think that they're probably the favorite for the 1 seed, in my opinion, just with everything that's gone on around the East with Boston and Indy and everything like that. So I still think they're a 1 seed. I think this raises their floor. I think we won't. I think this really corrects a lot of things.
I'm very impressed with you.
Thank you. I think this solves a lot of things that we saw in the Indiana series. Struggle to get the ball up the floor, a struggle to make plays, a struggle on perimeter defense. I think this raises the floor quite a bit.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. I have no issues whatsoever with the transactions. I don't love moving on from Ty Jerome. It sucks because he was so fun to watch. but I get it.
Yeah. You're banking on somebody repeating a career year. And I think that's a much higher risky bet than somebody that's been in the league for a while that has had some injuries.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is no one's talking about is like everyone's like, well, Lonzo gets hurt, Larry gets hurt. It's like Ty Jerome doesn't necessarily have the cleanest bill of health either. Like he did play 70 games last year for sure, but yeah,
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Yes, injuries happen, but they've been in the league as long as they have. They have to be doing something right on the floor to stay in the league as long as they have.
Yeah.
And so I think that goes a long way that I don't think anybody's talking about.
Does Ty Jerome get a tribute video next year when Memphis comes to play the Cavs?
Absolutely. I 100%
agree.
think so.
I agree. LeBron still gets one every single time he comes back. So
I mean, it's LeBron.
right. Yeah. Totally
He's going
different.
to be the only Cav to have a statue out there.
He better.
He's going to have a statue.
Yeah, he better.
So for that, we'll get out of here. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Follow us on all of our socials. Like and subscribe to the channel. Tell us what you want us to talk about. Tell us what you want to hear. We're just Cavs fans trying to make a great show for other Cavs fans. So
that's right.
For that, he's Tim Daniel. I'm Skylar Webker. For Kevin Lynch, go Cavs.
Go Cavs.